Our session is now being recorded. Delighted to welcome Alice. I'm going to have to ask you to pronounce your surname for me, Alice, because I've had to go at it about 4 times and I've got it wrong every time. Lovely to welcome everybody. I'm sure I've got it wrong every time. Delighted to welcome you here today. And looking at this beyond training and looking at the value, I'm really keen for this topic. Welcome, Alice. Please
Thank
tell me
you.
your surname, just so I know how
No,
to say it properly.
do you know what? I would just love to hear you try first.
Uh, well, I would think it's Zaboda.
Very, very close. Svoboda. So it's
Zb-
just a Svoboda. Yeah, it's exactly
Zaboda.
it's said like phonetically. So Svoboda. Yeah, it's Czech. It
Awesome.
means freedom. So yeah, my partner's Czech.
Awesome.
So
Oh,
that's where it's from. My
fabulous.
surname before
Fabulous.
was very simple, so it was new NEW, which was much easier, I have to say. I struggle saying it sometimes, but hello everybody, lovely to see you, lovely to hear where you're all from as well. I think there's a real theme here, isn't there? That it is very grey, wet, and windy everywhere. I don't think the UK has quite got the memo that it is June. Hello, and also seeing that somebody is from, sorry, I think it's Kevin is from the Isle of Wight, which is one of my very favourite places in the whole entire world. So lovely to see you and lovely to see all of you. Am I just cracking on now? Are we assuming that everybody
All
who's joining is
yours now,
joining? Should we
Alice.
get going?
All yours
Wonderful.
now, Alice. Yeah, all yours. You start off, and if
Okay.
anybody's late, well, it's their own fault. They should catch up.
Yeah, and we've got the recording as well, haven't we? So it's all fine.
Exactly.
Also, whilst I'm going through, I know that you're all muted. So usually I would say, please heckle, please ask me questions. I don't mind. But in this environment, please use the chat. And if you've got any questions whilst we're going through, we can either address them as we do, or like Andrew said, there'll be time at the end. But without further ado, thank you everybody for choosing to spend the next hour with us. We really appreciate it. Today, our goal is to help you further prove the value of learning and development in your organisation and justify the resource allocation made to it. So, at the end of this session, if we leave you with just a couple of useful tips and takeaways, we'll be very happy. I'll be very happy. I'm Alice, as you know. I've been working for Good Habits now for 6.5 years. It's gone so quickly as a customer success manager. And my background is in psychology, psychology research, L&D, corporate coaching, and I'm also a certified NLP master practitioner. So it is safe to say that I'm very interested in people, our behaviours, what drives us, and how we can improve this human experience. And I truly believe that self-development and growth plays a vital part in that. So, we would like to invite you to get involved in the chat already. I would love to know from you, what tools are you currently using to measure impact? Please share, share, share. It'd be really interesting to see what's going on here.
I've opened up a larger window for everybody here. So there's this window. I can see we've already got people, Alex and Helen, already typing in. They're fabulous. In that
Wonderful.
box, in that box, please tell us, what tools are you using to measure impact?
Yeah, love that,
I've
Alex.
got a long list of things. I did a ton of research on this stuff. Well, I did for my book, so I'm really keen. In that large box we've got there, what are you using? Luca, you put in the other chat Tableau. I'm not quite sure what Tableau is. Do you want to fill us in on what Tableau is? But in the other box, please do tell us, what are you using to measure impact? We've got a couple of answers in there. I can see more people are typing, so we'll just hold for a moment and see what people are putting in there.
Oh, nice, Linda.
So Linda says feedback forms immediately after courses and then again after 6 months.
Smart.
Okay, interested in a 6 month gap, Linda. Why you choose a 6 month gap? Uh, we've got Lucas said about Tableau. We've got Helen saying pre and post course survey based on capabilities, objectives of the course. Kay says LMS data, although this is currently limited as we can't see back end data. That's interesting.
Mm.
Feedback survey, says Julia again. pre and post knowledge surveys, says Melissa, and CSAT surveys. Tell me what a CSAT, explain what a CSAT survey is for us, Melissa, purely because we've got other people who won't necessarily understand what they are. Similarly, LMS is Learning Management System. Pamela says we've an intelligent LMS which measures learning gain and offers impact evaluations timed at various intervals after the event. Interesting. Net Promoter Scores, Stella said. I'm interested in the what your timing and your intervals are for that, Pamela. Anything that surprises you, Alice? Alice, looking at some of the responses here, what are your thoughts on some of the responses?
Nothing particularly surprising. I'd say impressed more than surprised. I think that there are quite a lot of quite a lot of answers here, which would be what I would suggest as well. And I think lots of answers that I don't necessarily see a lot of with the clients that I work with a lot as well. So I think it's very interesting to see the differences in what people are doing as well. I love that there are lots of ways of evaluating behavior change here as well. That's really exciting. Still reading.
Exactly, and for everybody in the room, again, this is one of the other benefits. Alice is going to go through some stuff. I can add some stuff to it. But look, we've got here. We've got nearly 50 people in the room who are all giving other opportunities. So if you see something go, oh, that's a good idea from someone else, steal with pride. That's what we
Yes.
do. We steal with pride.
We say, pop it in your swag bag and go away and do something different.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's exciting.
Fabulous. I'm going to close that chat window down now. I can see we've got nobody else adding. If you want to go back and look at these, go back to the recording and make sure you log back in and look at the recording. You can see some of the others that are there. Alice, back over to you.
That's great. Thank you, everyone, for getting involved with that. Um, okay, so now that we've done the introductions and we've heard what you're all doing, that's great. So now let's discuss how far we've come in such a short space of time. So before COVID, learning was delivered in largely the same way. So in person, classroom settings, sometimes with not much success. We lacked the adoption of technology. The systems were there, but not really utilised to their full capabilities. So a lot has changed since then, largely due to people's working patterns. Hello, hybrid, and the uptake in tools such as Teams, Slack, Zoom, all of the above. And as AI becomes more prominent within the industry, this will continue to be the case. So it is very exciting. One of the benefits is that training can now be done, of course, on demand. So like most things, people want things as quickly as possible. So again, I would like to just have you pop in the chat just a yes. That's all I'd like to see. But has anyone here got a mobile banking app on their phone, or a news app, or social media app, or a food delivery app? Just popping yeses if you have. I imagine that every single person here will be a yes to some of that, especially the food delivery app. That's my personal favorite. That shows most up on my phone. Yeah, it's
I saw I
actually,
saw I saw a really interesting stat this week, actually, Alice. That
yeah,
was it this week, last week. That the ownership of smartphones in the UK,
yeah.
really interesting, is now at 97%. Ninety-seven
Wow.
percent of people in
Wowzers.
the UK own a smartphone, which I think is weird. I think my mum might be one of the 3% who doesn't, because she doesn't like the internet. But 97% of own a smartphone now. So we've just moved on again post pandemic.
Yeah.
We're doing things very differently now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the answers in the comments just show it all. We do expect things on demand now. It's quite irritating when something isn't on demand. I'm probably not just speaking for myself there, but learning is no different. So when clients say to us, learning is just a nice to have, or they want hands off or a self directed approach, I have to be honest, it's a real red flag for us. It's very scary. Why? Because this approach only engages a small group of self motivated learners, and it often lacks direction, data, impact. So it's scary. Self-directed libraries made sense during COVID, but now L&D needs to go further because that approach does only reach about 20% of learners. So to drive real impact, we need clear goals, active use cases, and moments that connect learning to growth for people and the business. We need activations. So at Good Habits, we've learned that without this, engagement stays limited and stagnant. So you launch, people are excited, and then if you don't do anything, it just drops off. And it's just the motivated people that use it, which we need, right? We absolutely need those people. I mean, they are likely to be our ambassadors, they're likely to be the people that help you push a learning and a growth culture. They're likely to be your high performers, the people that go for and successfully get internal promotions. Okay, so they're really important, but they do make up a really, really small group of people within the company. So we need activations. When you give activations, we know that it all improves. So enter the new age learning practitioner. I would love to know now, and I think, oh, sorry, I've just seen Andrew, you've put something in there. Yeah, if people could put this on the big chat, that would be great. But I would love to know what expectations, or how, sorry, how the expectations on you have changed. So from a few years ago, even maybe, what are the new expectations that you have as an L&D professional? Where are we seeing those differences? Because I know that there is a lot more pressure nowadays. I can see
Fabulous.
people typing already.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Let's
It's
all get
so
this
cool.
set.
This
Yeah,
is
this is quite an easy one to answer,
exactly.
though. I think, isn't it? It's like we're all under an immense amount of pressure now. We've all got a lot of expectations. I don't think this is a difficult one to answer, but I'm really interested in what people are saying. Yeah, too much work.
Exactly.
Can you deliver
Yeah.
this next week? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm definitely laughing with you. Yeah,
That's interesting. Linda, more in the moment learning. That's an interesting one.
yeah,
It's that it's this. I want it now. This.
yeah,
It's like you're saying your food app. You can go on your food app and get something delivered to your door. My son did this the other week. He got
yeah.
McDonald's delivered to the door, kind of thing. And it's like, well, you in the past used to go out and get it,
I
but
know
there's this
it's crazy.
expectation that stuff is delivered in the moment. I think that's a really interesting one.
Yeah.
Time pressures, shorter, faster. Alex is saying agile. That's interesting, Stuart. I'd love you to explain what agile is.
I
Um,
see one from Melissa here.
Tanya.
What's the ROI? Big one.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. The I like the e-learning module tomorrow one, says Tanya. There's this expectation that
yeah.
everything can be done really quickly. It's
Mm.
like this. How do we do it quickly? And Linda's saying that. Well, also, how can we use AI to assist our content? Um, Shorter bite size. Again, can't have people offline for an hour or longer, says Alex, which is interesting. Increasing capacity of the learns in the room from 25 to 50, says Julia. That's a really interesting one, because this idea that we can do things online now, that we can have bigger rooms and do things in a different way. So you've got this larger group of people. I like this, Helen, as well, embedding learning over time and not just during. I think is interesting. What other
Yeah.
expectations? I can see some more in there. Well, again, your thoughts, Alice, on the comments that our group here is saying.
Yeah, none of it surprising. I mean, I work with a lot of L&D teams and HR teams, and these are challenges that I hear like every day, and it's a lot. It's when you think about. I always say this in my sessions with my clients as well. When we think about how the role of a manager, for example, has changed over the last 10 years, the expectations. The expectations are just wild. And I think that this is why I love this session so much, because it really goes into how we break that down. Because sometimes, what I'm seeing here is a lot of, I guess, maybe overwhelm, or kind of like, where do I start? Or, when there's so much demand, like, where do I focus on? And I think that that's something that all of us are tackling within our roles. So I really hope that we'll be able to give you some clear focus from this session on how you can take all of these kind of demands and challenges, and actually give something back that's going to give us a boost in the right direction in the future of the organization.
Fabulous. I'm going to close that box a moment. I can see Callum, you're still typing. I like that, Jude, demonstrating behaviour changes. I like that. Kay, a shift from supporting from a learning perspective, but enablement and performance. I agree 100%, Kay. It seems to be a conversation around performance now, which I think is really important. And Callum, agile development methodology around computer practice. Absolutely. So, yeah, looking at stuff that you can do quicker and a more agile process. Thank you for the explanation that's in there. I'm going to close that window back down again. There we go. And back over to you again, Alice. Again, everybody, if you've got any questions, stick them in the box. But Alice, back over to you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for being so honest and so candid as well. It's really interesting to see that there are lots of different challenges, but all kind of, with the same pulls. So we know that state criers are crying out for learning to solve some of their biggest challenges in change and adaptation. But because the lens is now shining brighter than ever on L&D, the new expectations in some cases are that we're now expected to contribute to, and we've seen lots of this in the box that you've shared with us, but attracting and keeping hold of our best talent, understanding what they need, developing people, keeping your people engaged, strengthening the employer brand and its values, and finally demonstrating that what you're doing is making an impact to the business. So it's no mean feat. Oh, sorry, forgot about the the animations, but there we go. There we go. So it's the last point that we really want to talk about today, is that measuring impact. Okay. So we know at Good Habits that measuring impact is a really, really important of all of our jobs. It's an important part of my job. If our customers don't realize the anticipated value that they'll get from making the investment in our content and tools, then they're not going to be customers for long, right? So ironically, learning and development, or the training function, is also the first to be cut when we have busy periods, or there's a market decline, or when stakeholders look for operational efficiencies, so budget cuts. So we know that we've got to make impact, but also it's something that is quite widely demonstrated that it's not important. So we're told it's important, we've got to show impact, but then if it's the first thing to go when there's budget cuts, then that gives a very different message, doesn't it? So we're dealing with mixed messages here as well. So how do we really make that impact and make that value shine through for itself? So when we view L&D as a cost center of the business, our courses, delivery, LMSs, content libraries, they're all investments, aren't they? And investments have expected returns. So while sometimes we enable and supply transformative learning to employees, we need to make sure that the business also gets its reward. So to do this, we have to view our function and the work through the lens of the business. We have to understand the challenges, the desires, the needs of the organisation, and make learning interventions that meet those needs and then prove it. So this is where that spray and pray, self-directed only kind of piece falls flat on its face. It's too reliant on the individual learners prescribing their own medicine. And we know, like I said before in the previous slide, that just a small amount of people do that. It's in the 10 to 33% range. So we know that that's not enough. And perhaps those individuals also won't be doing it in the interest of the business. So L&D needs to take a stronger position on this to truly be seen as the organisation's supportive outcome enabler. So do you know what the different challenges are across the business? Do you know what keeps various stakeholders and department heads and managers up at night? If you don't, here's a really good place to start. The more you start talking in a language that soothes pain for leaders throughout the business, and the more you can start to offer solutions for those challenges, the more buy-in you're going to get, and your job is already a little easier because you are having a clear focus and you know that you're going to be able to provide direct value and impact that will be able to be seen throughout the business by the people that matter, by the people that hold the purse strings. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into this, but it's just something that we've come up with to make it stick a little bit more, how we can create these learning interventions in a way that we can really measure that impact. Okay, so I'm going to use one of the oldest models of measuring L&D impacts, the Kirkpatrick's level, 4-level training. Now, Again, I don't want to go into it. I'm sure all of you know all of this anyway. But level one, learners' reaction to the experience of learning. This could be anything from a smile to an NPS score. Level two, things become more sophisticated where we can measure a learner's knowledge, attitude, and perception of a topic area. You can do this through tests, evaluations, or even conversation. Level three, you can then see changes in behaviour. This is where things get really interesting. What people have learned is then applied to their day as well as their occupation. It's a visible change that managers will be able to identify over a prolonged period of time. That's quite exciting. And then, of course, level four, the results or outcomes. Have we had an impact? So sadly our stakeholders rarely care for the two that are the easiest. They want to know about like the behavior and the outcome, so this is where we say, if you start from the back, if you start and flip it on its head and start with the end in mind, that makes it easier. So let's do that. We can only prove impact if we're focused on things that are most important to the business. In the classic Kirkpatrick model, there can be a tendency to make or supply learning content in the hope that it delivers the required skills or behaviours. And that's why we can tend to get stuck at level one and two. In an untargeted approach, we hope that those who need it will find it, and the results will hopefully come. But in this flipped methodology, we hope that learners enjoy the learning process. However, that's not the least, that is the least desired outcome. That's not what we're looking at as such. In this effect, it's a more strategic approach, which will have a higher success rate since there's a clear focus on the desired outcomes before assessing user behaviours. So if it delivers impact and genuinely helps them to overcome their woes, then they're likely going to think it's great anyway. So it's an interesting way to reframe it, and something that we might find a little bit easier when we're looking at what we exactly need to tackle. So consider the desired outcomes and results. Every business stakeholder will be interested in improving different operational areas. Going into the business with three curiosities in the back of your mind is a great place to start. Know what's important for the business, get comfortable with financial and operational terminology, build your business literacy so you can understand stakeholders' goals and expectations. Go and talk to them. If you don't know what's keeping them up at night, if you don't know what the problems are, and you don't know exactly where you can add value with your interventions, go and speak to them about it. Find that out. Know your organization's business. So learn what its critical areas of focus are. And if you're not sure where to start, use the mission statement and the vision statement, because these will often tell you in a high level overview what impact it's trying to make. And know your internal operations. Review the organizational and departmental performance framework and KPIs. These are metrics that can lead you to your learning objectives and, of course, therefore, your learning design. Okay, so now I want to take a moment to highlight the elephant in the room when it comes to linking learning to results and outcomes. We know that directly linking learning initiatives as the sole contributor to operational outcomes isn't solid or truthful. There are so many variables that contribute to them: the markets, resources, team morale, endless. But learning is inherently intangible. So, after all, we are investing in people's brains in the hope that this translates to new behaviours and therefore operational effectiveness. Progressive stakeholders understand the challenges of measuring learning's value, but they also know that ongoing skill development is key to achieving business goals. In today's fast changing environment, continuous learning is essential. Luckily, leaders don't expect you to prove learning's value with perfect data. No one expects that. What they do want, though, is a clear link between your programs and improved performance. Their main concern is whether employees are gaining the knowledge they need to do their jobs better. If your learning initiatives support real business outcomes, you'll earn credibility and buy-in by showing how you're helping to tackle the issues that matter the most. So perhaps one mindset shift we should adopt is to shift away from the very rigid ROI thinking and measuring. Now, that doesn't mean we can just sit back, relax, and hope that what we're doing is making an impact. Obviously, there's still work to do to prove that we're doing our bit. But indeed, we do need to gather and present relevant data points we can use to prove learning's contribution and learning's value. So we often relate success purely to the financial benefits. And yes, we live in a capital society and money is important. And since many of us are looking to improve efficiency and profitability using learning, but whilst financial outcomes are the easiest KPI and arguably the most important, they are not a complete measure of success. In comes the balance scorecard. Hello. So, when we view the broad and strategic outcomes our organization's trying to build, by working backwards from multiple performance goals, we give ourselves many more opportunities to prove learning's impact. One method which organizations use is the balance scorecard, with the vision and strategy set out in different focus areas. Often, these will also have their associated OKRs or KPIs set out. And what I love about the balanced scorecard is its balanced nature. Now, regardless of the presence of balanced scorecard, there will be operational metrics all over the business that you can find, some financial, some not. What I like about working on non-financial performance outcomes is their potential to interplay to financial ones. So, for example, improving customer satisfaction does not necessarily mean direct instant, sorry, enhanced financial gain. Okay, but you're more likely to get return business in the future by word of mouth. But if being customer centric is important to your business, then you've delivered value to the strategic goals. What I do want to highlight is how you then measure the impact of your carefully investigated and designed performance focus program and help you paint the fullest picture of learnings which impact your stakeholders. So fund and excuse the text here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just kind of a bit squiggly. It's to do with our fonts. But anyway, fundamentally, the process is very simple. Identify what we're trying to improve, dig out the existing metrics, design learning with performance-focused outcomes, remeasure. A great starting point is measuring behavior change. Financial outcomes are harder to control and lagging indicators, but behavior is a leading indicator and it's easier to track. Even if results take time, proving L3 behavior change shows you're on the right path. How to measure it? 360 or peer feedback before and after learning. This can also reveal hidden skills gaps missed in your initial analysis as well. Self-assessments. I already see that a lot of you are doing this sort of stuff as well. So it'd be really great to hear from you, like how that's going, how you're using that to, to really enhance your learning offerings, and also what that's doing for your buy-in with the stakeholders around the company as well. But self-assessments or psychometric tests, comparing results pre and post training. Observe performance changes by asking managers or team leads if they've noticed improvements. It's subjective but valuable. Record their feedback and skills gap analysis repeated over time to track progress. If we design learning programs to close skills gaps and boost behaviours, we should track non-financial results for the people or teams involved. And if there's a clear link to financial outcomes, great, make sure you highlight that too. For broader learning and growth impact, employee surveys help, but they need to be specific. I always suggest asking targeted questions about particular programs or even mentioning the vendor that you want to know how it's working. And this ties into learning metrics. So ask learners if they feel the training helped their work. We've just started using a business impact survey to support our Good Habits program. So questions include, has this improved your performance? Could you apply what you've learned? You can also use pre and post assessments, ideally sometime after, to track knowledge gained. It's still a level 2 measure, but helps show progress and adds context to other metrics. Tracking self-directed learning isn't impact proof, but it reveals skills gaps and supports deeper analysis. And the last one is around potential impact. Maybe we're in a budgeting stage and we're forced to forecast the potential benefit from our training interventions. I believe cost benefit analysis is a much stronger approach to measuring the potential outcome versus a lagging indicator like ROI. Equally, not my favourite way of making impact, but one that does speak to those holding the purse strings, which we know is very important. How are your learning intervention decisions saving the company money, or what are the potential implications of doing nothing? apologise, hay fever, tissue at the ready. So putting all of that together in a simple example, I say it's a simple example, you're going to have to follow me here and you might want to go back to the recording, but your head of customer support is worried about a spate of poor online reviews and low associated support related customer satisfaction scores. You speak to a range of team leads and CS reps and conduct a skills gap analysis by reviewing job descriptions, looking at the problems customers are citing, and perceived skills gaps that managers and reps are experiencing. You make note that customers often cite that they feel passed around and there is a lack of ownership from CS reps. This is backed up by the department being split into two sub-departments operating in different time zones caused by a merger and acquisition. Your solution is to provide each sub-department with recorded internal knowledge sessions that are conducted by reps who are excelling in their product knowledge. Each CS employee gets 1 hour off the phones to review the content and take a specially made L2 retention test at the end of the course. The team of colleagues then meet the following week to demonstrate and role play the new features in a controlled and safe environment. 1 month later, managers are asked if they observe new behaviours by reviewing recorded customer service phone conversations and logging their satisfaction with the changes via a survey. 3 months later, heads of CS and L&D review the CSAT scores and subsequently conduct a new skills gap analysis. They notice a reduction in low support associated scores. The internal knowledge sessions and their retention tests are then baked into the CS Reps employee onboarding program for all new hires. In this example, we've proven to the heads of CS and the CEO that we have made impactful learning interventions that boost customer centricity and improved operational CSAT scores. Now, agreed. This example is pretty full on when it comes to proving impact, but it goes to show how we can use multiple angles beyond learning engagement to prove that what we are doing is improving business outcomes. So to summarise, whilst a self-serve learning approach encourages a few to be proactive, it's limited in impact potential and it's difficult to measure. We can only make impact and demonstrate that impact when we devise targeted learning programs that are simultaneously business and learner-centric. So, key takeaways. L&D can only be credible when it's more than a provision. Flip Kirkpatrick's model upside down and starting with the end in mind. Consider how to engage your learners and the potential learning barriers that face them, and take metrics from multiple sources to build your case of impact. And there we go. I see we've got some questions here. So I can see, Andrew, you're answering some as
couple
well.
of questions. Yeah, there's a couple of questions have come into the chat and a couple of comments. Thank you, Alice.
Great, thank you.
Interesting stuff in there. Let me just put up this layout here. There we go, because that's a little bit easier.
Thank you.
Good question from Helen first of all. So, by the way, everybody, thank you, Alice. If you would like the slides or 14-day trial, sorry, if you go to the link that I put in the text there, you can go to that link and you can do the works the same as the QR code. Let's come to Helen's question first. So for post surveys, what timescales do you find the most impactful? What are your thoughts on this, Alice? I've got a few ideas, but what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it all depends what kind of like capacity you've got as a team. I think it's quite nice to do it in like several months intervals. Andrew, I'm sure that you've got your own. I know that you've written a book and everything, but just from my experience though, from the clients that I've worked with, some that have like kind of done things like a lot later. Sorry, excuse me using my tissue, but this hay fever when it's raining is
It's
so unfair,
fine.
isn't it?
It's
Um,
fine. It's fine.
what I've seen is that sometimes people can, if you test things kind of like 6 months time, then you might lose some of the impact what people have learned because we maybe forget exactly like what we've learned and what we've done differently, because by that time you've created all new habits and it's become part of your everyday. So I think that it's good to leave a gap, but I would maybe say like don't leave it so long. That's the kind of feedback that I've had from clients. What you can do is you can measure something in like a couple of months time, and then maybe measure something else in a couple of months time. So not exactly what they learned from that, but actually what the change in behavior is, and then maybe what the advancements of that change in behavior are. So you can still do things like, you know, in time to come to make sure that we haven't reverted back to the way that we were doing things. But it is, I think that there are dangers in leaving it so long.
Mm, mm,
Andrew, what
yeah.
do you think?
Uh, So hard agree. The so something I talk about is something we call the power of 10. And the idea is that 10 days after an activity, you ask, so what? So you did this learning thing, so what? So what differences is it going to make to the way you do your job? And then at 10 weeks later, we ask, and now what? So you did that, and now what are you doing differently? And now what do you need to do differently? And at 10 months, if it's a larger program, we'll go, and what? And what was the business performance that actually made a difference? So 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, and it's, excuse me, and so what? And what, now what? Sorry, so what, now what, and what? And so just to look at the and you don't have to use 10. I mean, you could use power of 8, power of 6, power of 4, you know, whatever will work for you, depending on what the issue is. But spacing it out, you're exactly right, is really important to do. The key to it is also, it's not just reviewing just results back from people. It's fundamentally, that's why I love the slide with the balanced scorecard, looking at
Mm,
those other elements and saying, okay, so what difference are we making to customers? You know, if we have done this work, what difference is it making to our customers? Not just our new customers, but our existing customers.
yeah.
Not just our external customers, but our internal customers. What's it doing to our supplier pipeline, and what impacts it having there? So you can look at customers. It's this whole raft of stuff around customers that you can look at, as well as the feedback from the people directly. And that's where we need to think.
Yeah.
That's where I think we need to look. We need to look a little bit wider than just the initial feedback, which I think is
Yeah.
a important point. But there we go. Sorry, that's just me going off on one. Sorry, I'll get off
Thanks,
my high
Andrew.
horse now. Okay. There's a really good comment from Dan as well, which I really like. This comment from Dan. Is there a deeper issue here with the business process needing attention if you're splitting the support across teams? So, your example, this came out from the example. You know, this doesn't feel like a purely training-based solution. Yeah, well, sorry, I'll type them in the chat, Julia, the comments. So, yeah, is there a deeper issue, says Dan, that with your example, that it's not just about training, that there are other business processes? What are your thoughts on that, Alice?
I mean, yes, it was purely an example to show what we can do and the different things that we can look at measuring in a very intricate way to prove business impact. And I think really to make a point that it's very important to make real impact. So yes, I mean it is probably highly flawed in lots of areas and lots of other things going on there, but purely used as an example for how you can measure impact and who you need to speak to and who you need to make a difference to. I think and the ways that you can do that. So not just by looking with the CS graphs, but also like looking at the customer satisfaction scores, things like that. I think it was really just built to highlight those different areas that we can look at. So yes, absolutely, it does show lots of other things that we could look at as well, but purely for a measurement reason. That's why that example was created.
So I've just written something else in the chat because, again, I've got something else on this. You know, there we go. Um, you mentioned capability. I think the beautiful description of what you've just done, I think, is beautifully described. Dan, is the issue we have around capability in organisations. So learning functions, and this I think is really interesting. Going back to your question, Alice, which is what are being asked to do differently. We're being asked to deliver capability now, as
Yeah.
opposed to just ability. And to me, capability is capacity plus ability. Now, if we're being asked to help support capacity and giving people space to practice and so on, arguably we should be looking at the metrics around that capacity issues as well. So if it is a system issue, we should be picking up that there are system problems. as well, and reporting on that as much as the training stuff that we do as well. We did a really interesting piece of work with an organization once who had a real problem with evaluation of sickness absence. Sickness absence was a big problem for this organization, and they couldn't, develop people to manage sickness properly. So what they said was, okay, we want some training on managing sickness absence. We found the problem wasn't sickness absence, it was because people didn't know how to use the system properly. So all we did was put a GIF together, 7 screens, a little bit of text on each, sent out a GIF, and everybody started using the system. Fabulous. Now what happened when we came to evaluate, what happened was that sickness went through the roof. Oh my God, isn't it terrible? Sickness gone through the roof. Brilliant. Because do you know what? People were recording it properly, and it's understanding those impacts of stuff you do, which I love that example you spoke about, because as Dan says, it's not just training, it's other things as well which come into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go back to Kay has asked a question. He start with the higher levels, but how do you use the lower levels as a timeline to measure how we track good progress leading up to 6 months for those higher levels? So it's a really good question. So what are the higher levels? How do you create the link? One of the things I find is the link between the lower level stuff, the 1s and 2s, and the higher level stuff. How do you build some of the links between those, Alice? Have you got any ideas around how we build those?
Um, yeah, lots. And I speak with lots of clients who do lots of different things. I'd actually really love to hear what you think about it, because I think that I want just because just because of a conversation that we had off screen yesterday.
So-
I think,
oh,
yeah, I think people are going to
all
want to
right.
hear what you've got to say on this
Okay.
one.
All right, so everything's right. Okay, so we're going behind the curtain. So guess what? I don't
Yeah.
just turn up. Alice doesn't just turn up. We talk about these things before we do them, and we're talking about this
Spoiler.
presentation. And yeah, but spoiler alert, everybody. And everybody's going, and Alice is going, yeah, yeah, but you know about this stuff, Andrew. Yeah, you know about evaluation. I went, yeah, okay, I do. All right. So one of the ways that we can do this, so one of the ways we can do this, one thing that I talk about is to build some establish some principles. So agree some principles across your organisation about how you're going to evaluate and what you're going to evaluate. And that's really important, because if you agree principles early on, for example, we will be data informed in our evaluation. It's a really simple principle, but if you establish that really early on across the whole organisation, you can then go to those managers and go, can you give me your customer data? And they go, no, 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 it doesn't relate to training. You go, well, actually, if I'm going to evaluate, I need to be data informed, and you agreed to being data informed when we talked about this some time ago. So start bringing in principles around your evaluation practice, and what will happen with that is people will become fairer and happier at sharing some of that data. Because you know what, if you're going to their managers and saying, yeah, so we did this, but I can't sell the customer data because I don't know it, it's not going to make them look good. So by putting some principles out there, again, I'll talk about some of this stuff. If people want to talk to me offline, feel free. But actually talking about the principles around how you're going to evaluate is really important. And it just sets and establishes the ground rules. And when you start establishing principles around performance, it just elevates learning from being what I call a shopkeeper, just producing stuff, to being an engineer and helping support what actually happens in the business. There we go. Is that all right as an answer?
Thank you.
And Kay's asked, how do we help learning teams have the right conversation with scoping with the stakeholder and link it to the evaluation up front rather than trying to use the evaluation just at the end? Again, I've got an answer on that one. But you any thoughts on that, Alice?
Yeah, I say again, the types of conversations that I have with my clients around this, being able to just have those very open and honest but direct conversations with stakeholders. I feel that there's a lot of kind of like beating around the bush, or the fluffy metrics and things like that. Whereas actually what we really want to know is what I said in the presentation. What is keeping people up at night? Like what stops them going to sleep with an empty brain? Like what is the thing that is just is stressing them out? Because when you know that, when you have those open conversations, then together you can start sparring with one another. You start to like get on a level. So rather than you having to deliver something to them and kind of like guessing at what they need, you're having a conversation where they're also inputting to that solution as well. And that obviously like gives like better buy-ins. Then you're not just relying on like the evaluation at the end. You're working towards a common goal. So sorry, again, I'm not sure if I've exactly kind of answered your question there, but those are the conversations that I have with people. It's really about it, just making clear. I think it goes back to your principles as well, Andrew. I think that it's very good to have those sorts of principles in conversations
Yeah.
as well when you're at planning stage, because if you're taking the time to understand the pain that people are going through internally, and you really want to make it value-led impact, then value-led impact, value-led like interventions, then
Mm.
it all starts with having that very, very clear conversation.
Yeah. And I like the Mark's comment in there. And again, so something I've just typed into the chat is value is the perceived benefits divided by the cost. Now, if you only ever talk about benefits from a learning perspective, you will only ever be producing learning content. So if you only ever talk about the number of courses, the number of attendees, the amount of completions, etc., then you are only talking in learning language. So the conversation should be in terms of scoping. It is exactly as you said, and this the kind of thing you should be taking forward, Kate, is all right. So you want to do some sickness absence training. What's the performance that you're looking to happen as a result of this? And then you can look at the perceived benefit, and the perceived benefit will be higher sickness reporting, numbers of people off ill, whatever the thing happens to be. So what we have is we have perceived benefits built around the performance. Again, Mark, I like that comment. We look at setting goals for each scope. So the
Mm.
goals then have to be performance goals. So it's thinking from performance first. What is the performance that will happen? I have this conversation all the time. I was looking at a attendee yesterday to do with management development. And what they want is courses, classes, workshops, and the cost of courses, classes, workshops. There was nothing about, so what is the benefits that we will get from doing the management training? And it's just going through the motions of delivering really good training that doesn't make any difference at all to the organisation. And it's fundamentally that difference that we have to have in terms of conversation. Which is why I like your presentation, Alice, because it is talking about performance first, and we do have to go into that space.
And what I see
Good.
time and time again as well, are the difficult conversations that my direct clients have with the people who essentially sign off. So they
Hmm.
know that the product that they're using is great and has like tons of potential, and like covers all of the soft skills that they know that they're lacking within the company. They have all these ideas about doing like skills based pathways for people, helping people understand how they can move around like within the company and not just kind of like role based, all of that. They understand that, but being able to have those conversations, you can't just have a conversation. You can't just say, I really believe in this is what we need. You have to be able to make impact, and the only way I think the only real way to do that is to show those the difference in performance, the difference in behaviors. And that's why we talked about all these different ways. But if you can't do that, then I think that you're always going to be swimming against the current. And again, being able to get those stakeholders all in a room together, and then well, if you can't do that, but like just going individually, taking the time to do that, it's worth it for you, because then you've got your toolkit, you've got things under your belt that that you can go away and start working on, and that the solution that you've worked so hard to buy, to implement, and to roll out, that you're going to be able to start making that so valuable that
Hmm.
people can't turn around and say, do we really need it anymore? What kind of impact
Hmm.
is it having? Because you know full well that you are directly addressing the problems throughout the company. So I know that I'm not specifically talking about the ways that you measure that here, but I do think that this is something that, whilst it sounds very, very obvious, it's something that I do not see regularly happen. So,
I
that's why I think
I
it's really
agree
important
with
to
you.
make that
I
point.
agree with you 100. I agree with you 100%. You are 100% right. I've put in 3 words in the chat because it's those people we need to speak with. The people we need to speak with are the hippos. So okay, so the hippos, the highest paid person's opinion. That's the people you need to speak to.
Right.
They're the people you need to get on your side. Don't spend time with the rhinos. Because when
Yeah.
you go walk into a meeting, the rhinos are really here in name only. So they are there because they are representing, but they actually they've got nothing to add. And the last group of people that you really don't want to engage with in stakeholders are zebras, zero experience but really arrogant. And those are the people who say, well, we did a course somewhere else, and this course we would want to do it here. Okay, so we because we did that course. And the difficulty is if people have only ever looked at learning data, they'll only ever assume it's learning data. And so zebras, you see loads of zebras in organizations. The people you need to
Yeah.
engage with are the hippos, but you can't engage with hippos unless you're talking about performance. So you
Yeah.
have to talk in the language of performance because they're the highest paid people and they're the people who need to understand what difference it's going to make to the organization. So you're exactly right, Alice, exactly right. But you've got to go and find hippos, not
I'll
zebras.
go and find. How do we find the hippos?
How do you find them? So
Yeah.
you'll know who they are. You will know
Oh,
who they are. They
just
will be the people. Rhino. So Jade says Rhino is really here in name only, and you find those in meetings. You walk into a meeting, and there will be people there who are there just in name only. They are there purely because their function needs to be represented. They have nothing to add. They will take nothing away from it, but they're filling the time. We all go to meetings like this where we are really here in name only. That's the problem, Jade. How do you find the hippos? You will know who the hippos are. The hippos have two kinds of authority. They have power, so they'll be holding a pen for in terms of budget, but they will also have influence. There are lots of
mm,
senior people who have power but no influence. So you need people who have both hierarchical authority and social authority. So who are the influential people who actually help people change minds? And what you need to do is to find out who they are and then also make sure that they have some power to sign stuff off as well. Those are the people to go and talk to.
love
Welcome to
that.
my head, everybody. Sorry. This is the way I think about stuff.
I love that.
We're
I've been
almost at
stealing that
time.
forever now.
Still with pride. I've stolen
That's
it
in
from
my swag
somewhere
bag.
else.
It's
Yeah,
in my
I've
swag bag
stolen
for
it from
sure.
somewhere else.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Awesome, everybody. Thank you. We're going to have to close down because we're nearly at time. Brilliant. Thank you, Alice. Please say thank you to
Thank
Alice. Please
you.
put in the chat your thanks to Alice. Like I said, you've got the link there for 14 days of good habits. You can connect and also connect with Alice as well. You've got Alice's details there.
Yeah.
Please do connect with Alice. If you want to, you've got my contact details there as well. Whether you want to or not, please do get in touch if you think you want to chat through this stuff. LT
Yeah.
webinars, the recording will be available from tomorrow and the future webinars as well. I am going to put you all back on hold in a moment. Alice, you want to hang on there just a moment for me. But
I
thank you,
will.
everybody, to the 40 or so people who have been in the room. This has been really fun to do this morning. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you
Me
all.
too.
And we will see you at 12 o'clock when we're looking at, guess what? AI again. Who knew? That's all we talk about.
Love
I'm going
AI.
to put everybody on hold. You're about to lose access
Thanks,
to the chat, but thank
everyone.
you, everybody, and thanks for your comments.